wife and her friends enjoyed mocking me all the time. I couldn't take it anymore and planned this. Hey Reddit, it's my first time posting here. I've been stumbling upon this subreddit quite frequently on TikTok and Instagram, so I thought I'd join in and share my frustrations. I need an outlet to vent because I am beyond angry. I ask myself, what do people actually want? I pour my heart and soul into being the best husband I can possibly be for my wife Nora, yet all I seem to receive in return is disrespect, especially from her and her circle of friends. A little bit of backstory about me and my wife. Nora and I met during our college days at a lively party thrown by one of her friends. There was an instant connection between us and we hit it off right away. We exchanged numbers that night, and shortly after I took her out on our first date. Fast forward and here we are, happily married for about a year. I'm 30 years old and Nora is 29. Professionally, I work as a software engineer in a prominent tech company, which fortunately means I earn quite well. However, despite my efforts to provide for us and create a comfortable life, I've noticed a concerning pattern. My wife and her friends have developed a habit of mocking me, whether I'm present or not. And what's worse is that Nora never stands up for me in these situations. Nora's behavior and attitude towards work and responsibility have been a constant source of frustration for me. Despite all that I do for her, she seems to take it all for granted. It's like she has gotten accustomed to me handling everything, from paying bills to taking care of household matters. The problem isn't just that she can't hold down a job, it's her whole approach towards work and life. Even back when we were dating in college, Nora has always displayed signs of laziness and a lack of commitment. She would jump from one job to another and never stayed at a place for more than a month or two. It's a cycle that has always repeated itself over the years, and it's incredibly frustrating to witness. She barely graduated from college, and most of her projects were done by me out of fear that she wouldn't put in the effort herself. What's even more concerning is Nora's tendency to avoid responsibility and shift blame onto others. She never takes ownership of her actions or lack thereof. Instead, she blames professors, lecturers, co-workers, bosses, anyone but herself. It's always some excuse about why she can't stay at a job or why things aren't working out for her. It's always someone else's fault according to her, whether it's the job being too stressful, her co-workers not liking her, her professors back in college failing her on purpose, or her boss having a personal vendetta against her. Her lazy attitude towards job searching is equally infuriating. I have to practically push her to even start looking for a job, and when she does, it's half-hearted at best. It's like she expects everything to be handed to her without putting in the effort or taking any responsibility for her own success or failures. Nora's friends have also really messed with her head and keep feeding her outdated ideas about what men and women should do. They've convinced her that I should be the one paying all the bills while she just sits at home looking pretty. It's ridiculous, especially since we don't have any kids to take care of. I've tried explaining to her that it doesn't make sense for her to stay home all day doing nothing, but she keeps pushing for it and arguing about it. It's just absurd because these friends of hers are single and pay their bills themselves. They constantly complain and moan about how nobody wants them, but who would want a person that thinks like that? Before she quit her last job, she was only there for 3 months. Nora's friends would constantly make fun of me for not being man enough to let her stay at home. They'd call me selfish and greedy and say I make good money so I should let Nora stay home. I've told Nora time and again that I don't like her friends and don't want her around them, but she just brushes it off and says I'm insecure because I don't have many friends myself. But the thing is, I would rather not have any friends that be friends with the kind of people Nora associates with. Now her friends also have this crazy idea that a guy should fight for a cheating partner to prove his love. They say if a man doesn't fight for his partner after she cheats, then he never really loved her. It's nonsense, and I've tried telling Nora that, but she won't listen. When I ask her friends about the double standard of loyalty between men and women, and if that means a woman should fight for a cheating man, they accuse me of being old-fashioned or even sexist, and that it's not the same for women and men. When I then ask them if that means that women and men aren't equal, they again fumble, and the only reply they ever have is to say I'm sexist. Nora deciding to stay at home because of what her friend said has caused a real headache at home. Even though she's supposed to take care of things now, like cleaning up, cooking, and doing the dishes, I'm the one stuck doing it most of the time. It's so annoying to come back from work tired and find the house a mess, especially when Nora could easily help out but chooses not to. To make matters worse, Nora invites her friends over frequently, and they leave the place even messier without lifting a finger to clean up. When I bring this up with Nora, she brushes it off, claiming that I'm being too demanding and don't understand the challenges of being a stay-at-home wife. It is a constant battle trying to get her to see the importance of contributing to the household, especially when she's not bringing in any income. What's even more infuriating is her friends' influence on her attitude towards accountability. They've convinced her that she doesn't need to be answerable to anyone, not even her spouse. There was a time when Nora packed up and left for a weekend getaway with her friends without informing me. According to them, sharing her location or letting me know about her plans is controlling and sexist. They've painted me as an abusive partner just because I expect basic communication and honesty in our relationship. For me, it's not about control. It's about safety and trust. If Nora doesn't share her whereabouts with me, how can I ensure her safety if something goes wrong? It's common sense and respect for each other's well-being, yet her friends have twisted this into an issue of control and oppression, which is just ridiculous and absurd. Communication and honesty should be the foundation of any healthy relationship, but it seems like these values have been lost on Nora and her friends. For the longest time, I put up with all of this because I loved my wife. Sure, she had her flaws. She was easily influenced by her friends. She could be lazy at times, but she was still the woman I married, and I didn't mind picking up the slack. I understood that everyone has their struggles, and I was willing to support her through it all. The tipping point for me was like a floodgate bursting open after being filled with anger and frustration for so long. It wasn't just one thing that pushed me over the edge. It was a whole pile of stuff that kept adding up until I couldn't take it anymore. Looking back, I see now that I should have put my foot down from the get-go, but I guess I let it slide because I didn't want to rock the boat and ruin Nora's relationship with her friends. Their teasing was relentless, and they made sure it hit me in every part of my life. They'd make fun of the things I loved, calling me a nerd or a weirdo, and trashing my hobbies like they were the most ridiculous things in the world. And my awkwardness? They made that their favorite target, especially in big groups or gatherings. They'd laugh at my every stumble, joke about my lack of social skills, and it was like they enjoyed seeing me uncomfortable. What hurt the most was seeing Nora join in or laugh along. She knew how much their teasing bothered me, but she'd just ignore it or even add to it sometimes. It felt like a slap in the face, like she cared more about fitting in with her friends than how I felt. Even when she saw that I was upset, she wouldn't speak up or ask them to stop. It started to make me wonder if she really respected me, or if I was just a joke to her. The mockery didn't just stop at my hobbies or my social skills. They also took aim at my relationship with Nora, and they would put it down with their hurtful words. They'd throw around the word simp, like it was an insult of the highest order. They would use it to belittle me and make me feel emasculated. Their tone was never playful or friendly. It was always rude, derogatory, and dripping with disdain. They'd say I was submissive and weak, that I'd do anything Nora asked without question. The way they talked about it made it clear they thought less of me for it. Nora would most times laugh along with them and reinforce their hurtful comments instead of standing up for me. It hurt so much to see her join in because it was like she agreed with them on how they viewed me. One particularly painful incident happened at one of her friend's birthday party. It had been a large gathering, and after it ended, I wanted us to leave, but Nora insisted we stay for a while because no one was leaving yet, and then they started openly mocking me for being a simp. Instead of shutting it down, Nora joined in the mockery and started listing times and instances where I had accommodated her wishes or put her needs first. She was just openly airing our private moments for everyone's entertainment. They didn't stop there. They also took shots at my intelligence. Despite being smart, they'd compare me to Sheldon from Young Sheldon in a very demeaning way, calling me a weirdo because of it. They made it seem like being smart was a flaw and would prefer to mock me rather than appreciate my intelligence. They didn't just tease me about my hobbies or social skills. It felt like they had a personal grudge against every part of my life, no matter how good or important. It was like they were on a mission to nitpick and ridicule every single thing just for the sake of it. Take my job in the tech industry, for example. Instead of acknowledging the perks of having a well-paying tech job, they spun it into something negative. According to them, tech professionals were reclusive control freaks who enjoyed being abusive, which is such a ridiculous stereotype with no basis in reality. Even my appearance wasn't off limits to their mockery. Despite staying fit, hitting the gym regularly, and taking care of myself, they found ways to turn it into a joke. They'd mock my blonde hair, comparing me to a Ken doll in a way that was downright insulting. They even criticized my gym routine, saying that people in tech shouldn't care about fitness, which made absolutely no sense at all. One particular incident that really got under my skin was when they messed with something as serious as the ownership of our home. This house was a gift from my mom after we got married, and naturally it was in my name due to my mom's reservations about Nora. She doesn't like Nora. Now, my mom wasn't one to stir up trouble or act petty, but she did want to make sure the house stayed under my ownership, which I totally understood. At first, Nora didn't have any issues with this arrangement, but then, after chatting with her friends, they planted this crazy idea in her head that everything I owned automatically became hers as my partner, while everything she owned remained solely hers. It was like they were trying to rewrite the rules of partnership. They told her that as my partner, she deserved total ownership of the house. This ridiculous idea they filled her head with has caused unnecessary drama and put pressure on Nora to demand full ownership of the house and completely ignore my mom's intentions. Despite me trying to find a middle ground and suggesting joint ownership, Nora and her friends kept pushing for their unrealistic demands. When I stood firm and refused to budge because why the hell would I give you full ownership of a house I was gifted? They finally told Nora to accept the compromise, but the damage had already been done. Their meddling and manipulation had strained our relationship so much that I was no longer willing to give in to their unreasonable requests, and I refused to even add Nora's name on the deed for joint ownership. The breaking point for me was yesterday, Friday night, a night that turned into a nightmare. Nora had insisted I join her and her friends for drinks and dinner. Now, I'm not a fan of Nora's friends, and the thought of spending an evening with them didn't exactly thrill me. They weren't my crowd, they were Nora's. Still, Nora kept pushing, saying I needed to socialize more. Reluctantly, I agreed. Nora's friends said they were hungry and suggested we all go to a restaurant before heading to a bar to drink. Nora told me she was hungry too, so we all agreed. We ended up at a fancy restaurant, the kind that's a bit pricey but not too extravagant for me. I noticed Nora's friends ordering really expensive dishes, and it struck me as odd considering their modest incomes. However, I shrugged it off, because I thought maybe someone else in the group had told them they would foot the bill. Nora ordered something pricey too, but I didn't mind covering it. After all, I wanted her to enjoy herself. During dinner, though, they turned the evening into a roast fest, mocking and gossiping about me right in front of my face. I chose to ignore them, focusing on my food and trying not to let their negativity ruin the meal. But then after we were done eating, the waiter asked if we were getting separate checks. To my absolute shock, Nora's friends declared that I was footing the bill for everyone. That was the tipping point for me. I couldn't contain my anger any longer. I demanded to know why they assumed I would foot the bill when I never agreed to it in the first place. Their feeble excuse? Because I earned a steady six-figure salary while nobody else at the table did. That excuse was beyond ridiculous. Just because I earned well didn't mean I was obligated to cover everyone's expenses, especially not after enduring their mockery and disrespect all night. It wasn't about the money. It was about respect and decency, things they clearly lacked. Well, things escalated when Nora then sided with her friends and insisted that I should pay. I refused because I was adamant that I wouldn't finance a meal for people who had just spent the evening mocking and belittling me. They fired back, insulting me further, saying I couldn't take a joke and that I was weak. I stood my ground, demanded separate checks, and only paid for Nora and me. Of course, I left a hefty tip for the waiter because they didn't deserve the hassle caused by Nora's friends. As I was about to leave, I gave Nora an ultimatum. Either she left with me or it was over. At first, she wanted to insist she stayed, but one look at my face and she knew I was really angry, and so she reluctantly came with me. When we got home, Nora unleashed her anger and blew up at me. She called me stingy and selfish for not paying despite having the means. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the money, it was about principle. But she dismissed it. She said her friends were just joking and I was too insecure to handle it. I just ignored her and went to bed because I didn't know what else to say. She had joined her friends in humiliating me and was now mad that I didn't want to bend over backwards for her anymore. The next morning, things were still very frosty to say the least. She didn't even bother with a simple good morning and continued her silent treatment. I decided not to go out of my way to make breakfast like I usually did on weekends. We ignored each other for hours until she finally approached me. She laid down her ultimatum. If I wanted her to stop ignoring me, I had to cough up the money to cover her friend's extravagant dinner bill. She argued that they were still fuming over what they saw as my embarrassing behavior and selfishness. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything that had transpired, she wanted me to fork over money to appease her friends' wounded egos. I didn't beat around the bush with my response. I flatly refused, telling her to forget it. She then threatened to withdraw money from our joint account to settle the bill. That was a line I wouldn't let her cross. I warned her sternly that if she dared touch our shared funds without my consent, she'd better start looking for a job to replace the money. Naturally, my refusal set her off again, and she went right back to giving me the cold shoulder. So yes, that is my dilemma. I'm currently writing this from the kitchen, LOL. I feel so angry and disrespected. Frankly, I feel like an idiot. Any advice on how to navigate this whole shit show would be appreciated, though. Thanks for listening. Update. Hey everyone, it's been about 5 hours since I posted about my anger and frustration here, LOL. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your overwhelming support and advice. Honestly, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did, but your comments and messages have really resonated with me. Many of you pointed out something I hadn't fully realized before, that my wife's actions and behaviors have shown a lack of love and respect towards me. It's eye-opening to see so many people echoing the same sentiments I've been feeling. Your validation of my anger and frustration has been very reassuring, and now I know that I'm not insecure, and definitely not the one at fault. Some of you mentioned that I should have ended things long ago, and looking back, I can see that staying in this relationship was a mistake. Nora's association with toxic friends and her disregard for my feelings are clear red flags that I should have heeded earlier. It's a very tough realization, but I appreciate the honesty in your comments. I've also received some creative suggestions on how to handle this situation, haha, and a lot of you said I should seek legal advice. I'm definitely going to consult with a lawyer to understand my options moving forward. It's only been about 5 hours since my last update, so as for what's happening right now, not much. Nora is still distant and getting ready to go out without telling me where. Once she leaves, I plan to secure our joint account to prevent any further misuse of funds. I'm 100% sure she's going out with those friends of hers, and there is no way I'm letting her spend my money on such horrible people. It's time for me to stop being complacent and take control of my life again. I've also realized that this relationship has reached its breaking point, and I'm definitely getting a divorce, but I won't let Nora off easily, considering how much this situation has affected me. I'll try and keep you all updated as things progress. Thanks again for the support and advice. I truly appreciate it. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me and I'm back with another update. I appreciate all the support and advice from everyone in the comments and DMs. It's been quite a ride since my last update, so let me fill you in on what's been happening. After the incident with the joint account, Nora was furious when she found out I had withdrawn all the money. She was particularly upset because she had promised to cover her friend's expenses for the evening. This situation led to a very heated argument where she accused me of being unfair and controlling. In response, I suggested she get a job if she didn't want me controlling her. I told her that we would now only use the joint account for bills. This didn't sit well with her, and she threatened to leave if I didn't transfer the money back immediately. I stood my ground and ignored her and just went to my office and locked myself in. She didn't expect that. She had expected me to relent as I usually did. Since then, I've been finding ways to play harmless pranks on Nora. For instance, I strategically placed realistic-looking fake bugs around the house, knowing she's terrified of them. The reactions were priceless, and when she confronted me about it, I turned the tables by calling her insecure for not being able to take a joke and that I was just playing around. Another prank I've been pulling is setting multiple alarms in the morning. Nora tends to sleep in, while I have to wake up early for work. Although I used to avoid alarms because they disturbed her sleep, I've started using them to ensure I don't oversleep. She's been complaining because she's a light sleeper and it's been driving her crazy, but I've insisted that they're necessary for my job. I've also taken my revenge on Nora to another level by playing mind games and making her doubt her own sanity. How do I do it? It's all about subtly shifting things around our house, and when Nora notices and asks me about it, I act like I have no idea what she's talking about. Sometimes I'll even pretend to be confused and question her memory, making her wonder if she's losing it. But that's just the beginning. I've been orchestrating conversations and plans with Nora, only to deny ever having those discussions later on. It's like gaslighting on steroids. This constant manipulation makes Nora second-guess herself, and makes her wonder if she can trust her own mind, or if she's just imagining things. Last night was the cherry on top. Nora actually mentioned feeling like she might have dementia. It genuinely took everything in me not to laugh. The fact that I've pushed her to question her mental health is both twisted and satisfying. It's cruel, I know, but she deserves it. While I've been playing mind games with Nora, I've also been strategically planning for our separation. It's not just about divorcing her. I want to ensure that she's left completely alone once I'm out of the picture. I've already reached out to my lawyer and started working on divorce papers. The thing is, I haven't told Nora any of this. She thinks we're just going through a rough patch, oblivious to the fact that I'm planning to leave her for good. It might seem harsh, but I believe it's necessary for both of us to move on separately. One of the biggest challenges I'm facing is the house. Legally, the house is mine, but it's also listed as Nora's primary address, which means I can't simply kick Nora out without going through a lengthy eviction process. I don't want to be stuck living with her for another 6 months or more. That's why I'm seriously considering selling the house without her knowledge. It might seem drastic, but it's the most efficient way to ensure a clean break. If I were to do that, I'd have to move back in with my mom temporarily, until I either get an apartment or buy another house. It's a pretty practical plan if I say so myself. I know these decisions might seem cold, but I've thought them through carefully. My priority is to move on from this toxic situation and build a better future for myself, even if it means making tough choices along the way. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while, but here's the latest update. Life has been pretty slow lately, and I honestly forgot to update, so my apologies for that. Now on to the actual update. Nora is finally out of my house. It's something I should have done ages ago, but I finally took the step and kicked her out. How did I do it? Well, I decided that if I was going to kick her out, I needed to do it with one last big statement. So I executed what you could call the ultimate prank, although it wasn't really meant as a prank, but more as a way to punish her. I swapped out her shampoo and conditioner with a hair removal product, and you can probably guess what happened next. She used it several times before realizing what was happening, which I found surprising because the hair remover does have a distinct smell and reaction. As a result, she ended up with a really bad haircut, with chunks of her hair falling out. She was so scared that she had alopecia that she insisted on going to the hospital to get tested. I had to hold back my laughter every time I saw her hair. For about a week, she didn't even leave the house because of her embarrassment over the haircut. During this time, she started hinting that she wanted her friends to visit her. Previously, her friends used to come over frequently and they would mess up the house but never clean. Their visits stopped after the incident at the restaurant where I refused to pay for them. I knew her friends would only mock me more if they came over, so I refused to let them. Instead, I suggested that she visit them. At first, she hesitated because of her haircut, but I pointed out that she could easily cover it with a hoodie or something and go see them. She thought it was a good idea and immediately got ready to leave. Her friends came to pick her up, and I took that opportunity to pack up all her belongings and put them outside on the porch. I also packed a bag for myself and went to stay with my mom to avoid dealing with her screaming and tantrums when she returned and found her things outside. It was my way of saying enough is enough, and I'm moving on without her drama. After settling in at my mom's house, I realized that Nora wasn't the only one who deserved consequences. Her toxic friends had played a significant role in influencing her behavior. Most of them were either unfaithful in their relationships or were with their partners for all the wrong reasons. When I dug into Nora's phone and saw their group chat, it wasn't just mockery I found. It was a treasure trove of secrets and backstabbing. I took screenshots, lots of them. I took to social media, Instagram, and Facebook, where I found their partners' profiles. For those with private Instagram accounts, I reached out to their close friends on either Instagram or Facebook and sent them the damning screenshots. Was it harsh, cruel, and unnecessary of me to do that? Yes. But did they deserve it? Absolutely yes. What shocked me even more was how they would talk behind each other's backs in private messages. Despite claiming to be best friends, they were ruthless when it came to gossiping about one another. I collected evidence of this too, sending it back to them so they could see the toxicity within their own circle. But my actions didn't stop there. I sent Nora a final message, ending things definitively. I made it clear that I wouldn't tolerate her toxic behavior anymore, demanded a divorce, and informed her that her belongings were waiting for her on the porch. I knew the chaos that would follow, especially from Nora, so I turned off my phone and went to bed early. The next morning, my mom filled me in on the shit show that went down. Nora had shown up at my mom's house and caused such a disturbance that the neighbors had to call the police. I couldn't believe I slept through all of that. When I asked my mom why she didn't wake me up, she said she knew I wanted to steer clear of Nora, which I appreciated, but I still felt a bit anxious. I was just glad that Nora's meltdown didn't turn violent. I guess I was utterly drained from everything that had transpired. When I finally did turn on my phone to check it, I was bombarded with messages from Nora. Apologies, begging, insults, and threats. It was clear she was spiraling, and I chose not to engage with her. I spent the day at my mom's to avoid any confrontation at home because who knows, she might have been waiting for me to just show up. 2 days later, I returned to my house and changed the locks. Nora's meltdown was evident. Some of her belongings that she didn't take were scattered on the porch, and the windshield of her car, which I had bought but was in my name, was smashed. I didn't even bother trying to make her pay for it. I took care of it myself, changed the locks, and retreated back to my mom's, while still ignoring all her attempts to reach me. Update. Hey Reddit pals, it's been a bit since my last update. I want to say thanks for all the support and laughs you've given me. It's been a wild ride, to say the least. Not much has changed on the Nora front. I'm still not responding to her per my lawyer's advice to document everything. She's going to be served soon, and I'm sure that'll set her off again. But honestly, I couldn't care less. I managed to get in touch with a few acquaintances who are closer to Nora's circle than mine. They spilled the beans that Nora's been desperately calling around looking for a place to crash. Turns out no one's biting. Her so-called friends have turned their backs on her because they feel it's her fault their cheating escapades got exposed. They're all in hot water with their partners or facing breakups, thanks to the evidence I dropped. Plus, they realized they weren't as tight-knit as they pretended, with all the backstabbing and gossip. Now, I'm not proud to admit it, but I couldn't help feeling a little satisfied hearing this. It's like karma served up a cold dish, and Nora's getting a taste of her own medicine. I also find it amusing that she hasn't tried involving the cops. Maybe she's clueless about the eviction process and doesn't realize that since she has my house listed as her primary address, legally I can't kick her out. But I'm thankful for that, because I wouldn't have been able to stand it if I had to house her for at least 6 months more. Meanwhile, I've kept up with my little pranks. I signed Nora and her buddies up for a flood of spam emails. Their inboxes are probably overflowing by now. And to top it off, I played a little trick by putting Nora's number on those bogus celebrity fan sites, claiming it's some celebrity's leaked contact information. People fall for that nonsense, so her phone must be blowing up with random calls, but hey, anything to keep her distracted, right? Update. Hey Reddit folks, it's been a minute since my last update, and I apologize for the silence. I've been dealing with the whole court ordeal, and let me tell you, it's been quite the roller coaster. The good news? I emerged from it with a major win. Nora did manage to snag a bit of early money, but it's peanuts compared to what I retained. Let me break it down for you. After getting served, we went through the court process. Thanks to my solid evidence and the fact that I had a really good lawyer, things went in my favor swiftly. Nora got a small chunk of early money, but thankfully it won't make a dent. I got to keep my house and a bunch of other assets, plus the court ruled that Nora had to cough up for the smashed windshield. Remember, I initially said I wouldn't press her for it, but since she got some early cash, I brought it up, and she begrudgingly had to pay. Seeing her fume about it was just an added bonus. As for Nora's living situation after the whole shit show, she's pretty much homeless. She's either crashing on couches or seeking refuge in shelters. She admitted this to me herself, LOL, probably to get me to pity her. And after the court drama wrapped, she cursed me out, blamed me for everything. Then in a weird and bizarre twist, she tried to plead for me to take her back. Seriously? One moment you're hurling insults, the next you want a reconciliation? I shut that down real quick, telling her it was over for good. Now I'm focusing on myself. I'm diving into self-improvement mode. I don't plan on dating anytime soon given the drama I've been through. It's all about my personal growth from here on out. Huge shout out to everyone who supported me through this wild ride. This will probably be my last update. This Reddit post exceeded my expectations, and I'm grateful for the amazing support. Thank you all so much. Update. Hey Reddit pals, I'm back with another update, despite saying that my last one would be the final chapter. It's heartwarming to know that many of you are still interested in what's going on in my life. So here's a little glimpse. Since cutting Nora and her toxic circle out of my life, things have been significantly better. No more mocking, no more negativity about my hobbies or interests. I took the opportunity to deep clean the house, and let me tell you, maintaining cleanliness without Nora around to create chaos has been a breeze. On the work front, I actually snagged a promotion. It's been a very rewarding validation of my hard work and dedication. As for dating, well, that's still on hold. It might be a while before I dip my toes back into that scene, but I'm okay with that. Self-care and self-prioritization are key right now, LOL. As for Nora's whereabouts, I'm not entirely sure. Last I heard, she was still struggling with homelessness, which is good for her, I guess. It seems she's stuck in the same cycle of job hopping and facing challenges in employment due to her qualifications and work history. Despite everything, I'm looking forward to a positive future. Thank you, Reddit, for all your support and interest in my life. Here's to hoping for brighter days ahead for all of us. Sometimes when you read about men that were cheated on by their partners, you can't help but ask, how does he feel? What did he do? I just know that he is going to end that marriage and find someone better. Most times the men do deserve someone better, but there's just one problem. Can they fully recover from being cheated on? Will they ever be able to trust anyone again? I recently discovered that my wife of 6 years had been cheating on me for 3 years with a random guy she met at our wedding, and I honestly don't know how I feel or what to do. I am stuck between peacefully filing for a divorce and being on the 9 p.m. news for something I might do. As I write this, I am at a wedding, sitting on the bed while a bag of clothes is placed in front of me. I honestly can't still grasp the situation or how I had been so blinded by the love I had for my war that I didn't notice sooner. I need to tell someone what happened, or else I might potentially lose my mind. My name is Greg Okoro, and I am a dark-skinned 42-year-old, 5'11" male with married to Clara Aide, a light-skinned 36-year-old 5'3" female. Clara and I met at the shopping mall. We both stood at the checkout line when a man came from nowhere and stood of Clara. Being annoyed at his behavior, Clara tapped on his back in order to get his attention before asking him to move to the back of the line because there were people who were there for her. Now, as I had stated before, Clara is 5'3", and this guy stood at least 6 ft tall and looked down at her before responding rudely that she should mind her business and allow him to pay for his groceries. Clara didn't stop, but again asked him to move to the back of the queue, and this really annoyed him because he soon threw his basket of groceries on the floor and was now looking at Clara, the way a lion looks at another lion who enters his territory. But Clara didn't budge, but I knew that if I didn't do anything, things would get out of hand. I ran out of my spot and rushed to where they stood, took Clara's hand and said, "Honey, let's go." They said that Mom is in the hospital, which is a lie, obviously, before dragging her to the counter where the cashier quickly checked out our things. Before leaving, I hurriedly apologized to the man before dragging a shocked Clara behind me. After we had left the mall, she seemed to snap out her shock and asked me who the hell I thought I was. I calmly explained that if I didn't intervene when I did, the guy would have done something to her, and I reminded her that we lived in a country where our safety is not guaranteed by the police. She seemed to calm down after this and thanked me. We exchanged contacts before I walked her to her car and watched her drive off before getting into mine. That singular encounter changed my life forever. Clara and I started texting, meeting for innocent lunch and dinner dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend. She accepted, and it was heaven on earth. I would always wake up to calls from her, surprise visits at house, home-cooked meals, more dates. But we never got too intimate. Clara came from a Catholic family, and they don't take kindly to such things. Her parents are Yoruba and also very traditional, so simple things like lying on the floor to greet them matter a lot. After dating for 3 years, I popped the question and she said yes. I was beyond happy because I have finally found my better half, my missing rib. Cheesy, I know. The wedding was beautiful, and finally it was time to go home and start the rest of our lives. We waited a year before we started trying for kids. The reason for this was because we both agreed that we wanted to have that period all to ourselves and build our careers before we can bring a child into the picture. On the second anniversary of our marriage, Clara surprised me with a positive pregnancy test result, and to say that I was happy was a big lie. I was more than happy, and why wouldn't I be? I was married to the perfect woman, and she was about to give me the perfect child. I always assumed we're happy. I worked hard as an accountant at Advise LLP, CPA firm at 6230 Wilshire BLVD Suite, Real 192, Los Angeles, CA 9048, United States provide for our comfortable life at LA. I trusted Clara completely and never suspected that anything was wrong. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Now 5 years and 2 kids later, I start noticing some changes. Clara stopped sending me good morning texts. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but even after we got married, she still kept the habit of always sending me good morning texts whenever she woke up. She always got up before I did to take care of the kids and get breakfast ready, but always found time to send me the cutest texts that would leave me smiling and giggling to myself all day. It was always something short and cute, like, if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber, or are you Netflix? Because I could watch you for hours. But all of a sudden, the messages stopped coming. When it first happened, I just brushed it off and assumed that she had a pretty hectic day and must have forgotten. But when 2 weeks had gone back without any good morning texts, I knew that Clara had changed. It was as though she had stopped caring about me and our marriage. The only time I would see her brighten up would be when she's with our kids, but whenever we would be alone, she would be so stiff and uptight with me that every conversation with her felt like a conversation between my boss and I. I thought I had done something wrong and even went as far as apologizing and treating her to a fancy dinner. But even after all that, she still remained the same. She had started keeping late nights, claiming she had to work overtime or meet with friends. She became so distant and cold that she started avoiding my affection and attention. I have never questioned my wife and her work. Neither have I ever imagined her of doing anything to hurt me, so I always went with her excuses. We had to get maid to help take care of the kids while we were at work, but I made sure to always coming back before they went to bed. I always assured them that their mother loved them because my eldest daughter kept asking why her mother was hardly at home and if they had done something to upset their mother. Hearing this from a 4-year-old girl broke my heart, so I told her that her mother just had a lot of work to do and also reassured them that their mother loved them so much. Each time I tell Clara what the kids say, she promises to change, which she does, but only for a day or two. Now I am a very calm and quiet guy, but for some reason, I was slowly getting agitated by what was going on, but I never for once questioned my wife's faithfulness to me. I always blamed her work or something else for her behavior. I never stopped being a loving and devoted husband who secretly prayed that things go back to the way they were. If someone had told me what the following year would bring and how it would affect me, I would have cussed the person out. The following year started off different. Clara was back to normal and even better than before. She was always smiling and laughing each time I saw her. The good morning texts started coming again, and she even added some happy endings at the end of the day for me, and I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I was also happy to see her spend more time with the children, and she even started coming back from work early. It was truly amazing because at that moment I felt like nothing could ever go wrong with life. One thing that she also started doing the year was going to the gym at night with her friends from work. She went every Sunday and would return to the house some minutes past 8. But she was always in a cheerful mood when she returned, so I didn't question the odd hours. It suddenly changed from every Sunday to Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't mind because her attitude didn't change towards the kids and I, so I turned a blind eye to it. After 6 months of going to night gym, there was no visible change in her body. She was still the same and even added a few pounds. Not that I am complaining about that, though. One day, I jokingly told her that I would love to join her in her gym sessions, and she immediately tensed up and got all defensive. She said, and I quote, "You don't need to go to the gym with me. It's mostly just ladies working out and talking about their husbands." Upon saying this, it dawned on me that she had never told me the name of her gym or where it was located, so I asked her. She looked at me for some time before she said she needed to use the restroom. My fellow Redditors, the next time I asked about the name and location of the gym, she came prepared with even pictures of herself outside and inside the gym. The gym was Hybrid Gym, LA. After that, I left it alone, but I was still curious as to why she reacted the way she did the first time I asked her about it. It was our wedding anniversary, and I planned to surprise her. I wanted to pay some people to follow me to the gym holding a cake, a money bouquet, and money cake, as well as a saxophone player that was going to play her favorite song for her. I called her sister to help me plan the surprise as well, follow me there to capture the beautiful moment. Around 5 p.m., everyone was ready and we drove to the gym in my car. Luckily, there was no traffic that day, so we only spent 30 minutes on the road. When we got there, everyone got into place. My sister-in-law started recording on her phone. I held the money bouquet. My Love by Westlife was playing on the saxophone, while those carrying the money cakes were at the back. I couldn't wait to see her face. Upon entering the building, we were met with many shocked and surprised faces, but none of them belonged to Clara. Thinking she might have gone to the restroom, I approached the receptionist and asked her if my wife had arrived. She asked for my wife's name, but after checking her records, she informed me that nobody by that name had registered there. I was confused because my wife had been going there for months, or did I get the name wrong? I asked her sister to call her and ask her where she was, but specifically told her not to inform my wife of my presence. She left to make the phone call while I went back to the car with others. After 5 minutes, she came back with a strange look on her face, and when I asked her what happened, she told me that Clara had told her that she was at the Free Hand LA, which was located at 416 W 8th St. Los Angeles, CA 914, United States. I just assumed that it was a work thing, or maybe her friends had lodged her to celebrate her anniversary with her. It's stupid, I know, but I always made excuses for her. I asked if she got the room number from Clara, to which she nodded, and we were off. Now, I am going to be frank with you guys. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened. In all my years of existence, I have never had the privilege of wishing that the earth would open up and swallow me, never to spit me back ever again. Thinking about it now makes me physically nauseous and stupid at the same time. How could I not see the signs? Why did I keep making up excuses for her? Why didn't I just confront her? No matter how many times I ask myself these questions, I never get a response. If I had done something earlier, maybe it won't hurt as much as it did now, or maybe I would have left before it was too late. I would still be sane and happy. But no, I chose to be the loving clown who trusted the enemy to take a bullet for me. When we got to the hotel, I told the receptionist about my plan to surprise Clara, and even told her that we already knew the room number. She agreed not to call Clara's room, and we went up. Again, like before, we got into position, phone recording, saxophone playing, money cakes, and money bouquet ready. I took a huge breath before knocking on the door. The door opened, and before me stood my wife in a towel with her hair wet. The moment she saw me, she froze, and I was about to speak when a voice spoke behind her. "If that's room service, ask them to get us new sheets. We got carried away and messed up this one," the voice said. I recognized that voice, but I couldn't place it. Clara still stood there, not saying a word to me or moving. Before I could say a word, someone stood behind her in nothing but shorts. The moment he saw me, his eyes grew wide and his mouth fell open. It was John. For some backstory, John was my stepbrother. Same father, different mother, but you would never know because we did everything together. The day I met Clara, I told him. The day she agreed to go out with me, I told him. The day she agreed to be my wife, he was there. He was my best man at my wedding, for crying out loud. I even complained to him when Clara was acting up, and he told me she'd come around. He even had the nerve to suggest that he might be cheating on me with someone else, but I guess he was the someone else. The thing was, I loved John so much that I was ready to give a kidney and a lung if he wanted me to, and I always thought the feeling was mutual, but joke's on me. Haha. I stood there speechless. Clara's sister had been able to snap out of her shock and asked others to follow her down to the car while I still stood there. I looked down at the floor for what felt like an eternity before I opened my mouth. "How long?" They both kept quiet. "How long has this been going on?" I shouted, which caused them both to flinch. They had never seen or even heard me raise my voice, so the shouting caught them off guard. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Then John spoke up. "A year after Amanda was born." My head shot up and I looked at them. "What?" I managed to mutter. Clara was going through some hard times. We met, had a couple drinks. One thing led to the other, and we spent the night together. I wanted to stop, but before John could say another word, I punched him across the face. Clara tried to talk to me, but in a fit of rage, I slapped her right across her face. "What do you want to tell me, huh? You're sorry? Or that you were lonely? Or maybe I was never around? No, tell me the excuse you want to give for sleeping with my stepbrother for 3 years while you gave me hell at home for 2 years and some months. You'd come home with an attitude, refuse to spend time with the kids. Your kids hate and nag at every single thing I do, but what do? I still love you. I make excuses for you to your kids. I make excuses for you to myself. I even complain to him." I point to John, who's holding his jaw. "But what do I get?" As I said this, I could feel the tears leaving my eyes, but I couldn't be bothered to clean them. Before either of them could say another word, I went back to the car, dropped off my sister-in-law and others, drove home, packed my things as well as my children's clothes, and took them to stay with my godmother. I just told her to look after them and that I would be back to pick them in a few days, but on no account should she allow Clara to take them. I promised to explain everything to her when I got the chance to. After I dropped them off, I went back to my house, got the gun I secretly bought as a bachelor, and checked into a small hotel. This is my story so far. Clara has called and texted me countless times, but I haven't said Q word. It's been 3 days since this incident, and I haven't moved from the bed since then. I haven't eaten or drank anything. Neither have I gotten up to take a shower. My head is still fuzzy about everything. Most times I think to myself, what if Emeka was not truly my son? What if John was responsible for the pregnancy? Each time I get these thoughts, I shake it off with the response that I was there when Emeka came into this world, and that I'll always see and love him as my son. Update. It has always baffled me how someone could sleep peacefully after doing something so evil that the mere mention of it would cause chills. I'm still at the motel, and it's been 3 months since I got here, and a lot has happened since then. It's been a bumpy ride, and I honestly still can't say how I feel about the whole thing. For those of you who might be confused, or maybe this is your first time coming across my story, hi, my name is Greg, and I am in the middle of a messy situation. Now, for some context, I detailed what I was going through in my previous post, but I'll still do a quick recap. I had been married to the love of my life for 6 years, but recently find out that she had been cheating on me for 3 years, and you will never believe who she chose to sleep with. My stepbrother. I know it sounds hard to believe, and honestly, after all the while, I still find it hard to believe that was able to find myself in this kind of situation. This is the kind of stuff that you read about on the news or maybe watch on those YouTube channels, but here I am, actually going through it in reality. Now, my wife had been trying to reach me and my kids, but when she found out that she couldn't, she took a different approach. As I think about it now, I've just realized that she isn't the same woman I dated and fell in love with. Was she just hiding her true colors? Or were they always there and I was just too stupid to see them? Anyway, back to what she did that left a scar on my heart. I got a call from my dad one day asking me to come over. Now, my dad is Nigerian and grew up there before relocating to the United States of America, and, well, let's just say that we, my siblings and I, were brought up Nigerian style, and whenever we were summoned, it always meant one of us had done something and was going to be scolded at. After I got the call, I sat on the bed and thought long and hard as to what might have caused my father to summon me. No matter how hard I thought, I couldn't think of anything, so I just accepted that I would only know if I visit him. The next day, I got up early and got ready for my visit to my father. He lived it, so it took some time for me to get there, but when I eventually did, I remembered why I hardly visited. Everyone was smiling and welcomed me wholeheartedly while my dad just stood there. I walked up to him with my hand extended for a handshake. But that was not what I got. The moment I got close enough to him, he drew him closer to him, hugged me, let go of me, and then slapped me across the face. Yes, I know it sounds strange, but it happened so fast that I couldn't process anything. Why are you such a disappointment? It's hard enough that you didn't turn out like your siblings, but you also cheat on your wife? I was so stunned I couldn't react. I stood there, hand on my cheek, looking at my father, who was looking at me with a look on his face I had never seen before. He slapped me. My father had never raised his hands to hit us, so where was this coming from? What? I managed to blurt out after some seconds. He repeated his words, but this time he said it calmly, and after saying it, he sat down and looked at me, waiting for my response. Who said I cheated on her? I asked, while still looking at my father with my hand still on my cheek. My father took a deep breath, looked at me from my head down to my toes before speaking. Listen, marriage has its ups and downs, and even though you had never done things the right way, I never expected you to be one accused of cheating on his partner, he said while looking at me dead in the eyes. I finally let go of my cheek and tried to defend myself, but when I tried to mutter words, he asked me to leave. Yes, he asked me to leave his house and to add a cherry on top of the icing. He said that I had to call my wife, apologize to her, beg her to take me back, or I would be disowned by my family. I would be disowned. I would be disowned by my father for something I didn't do. The moment I reached my motel, I fell on my bed and started laughing. I laughed so much my tummy began to hurt, and before I knew it, I fell asleep. The next day, I decided to go and visit my kids at my mother's place. When I got there, they were so happy to see me, and as usual, asked when their mom was going to return from her trip. I had told them that she had traveled for a work trip, and since I had changed my children from their old school, I didn't have to worry about Clara going to look for them there. You see, my mom and my father had divorced and were living separately. They separated 2 years after Clara and I got married, but I never told Clara where she lives, and I'm thankful for that now. After spending time with my kids, I sat down with my mom and told her what happened between her husband and I. She was surprised that I wasn't given a listening ear and was threatened in such a way. Mom knew everything that had happened between Clara and I, so she was able to judge the situation fairly. She asked me to file for a divorce and fight for custody of my kid, but I reminded her that doing that would cause my father to get involved, and since he believes I'm the one at fault, he would hire the best lawyer money can afford and take my kids from me. I stayed till 7 p.m. before I went back to the motel. Once I got there, an idea popped up in my head and I called my sister-in-law to talk to her. We had been keeping in touch all this while she even told me that Clara had brought John home and fabricated a lie to their parents, which won them over. She also told me that Clara seemed different, but I told her that I didn't call her to talk about her sister and that I needed something from her. I told her what I needed and she agreed. The next day, I got the nerve to visit my house in Clara. When I got there, everything looked the same, but it felt different. I knocked on the door and Clara opened the door. She was shocked to see me, but she immediately removed the look of shock from her face and invited me in. I sat down and she offered me something to drink, but I declined. After what felt like hours, I cleared my throat and spoke up. "How are you, Clara?" Saying her name while looking at her sent tears to my eyes, but I had to bite my tongue to prevent myself from breaking down. "I'm fine. How have you been? You look pale. Have you been eating well?" She asked me with a hint of concern in her tone. I didn't respond immediately because what exactly was I to say? I was fine? Of course not, but I wasn't about to let her see that. "I'm all right, Clara. I've just been busy with work. Look, the reason I came back was because..." I stopped talking, looked her in the eye, then fell on my knees. "Please forgive me. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I'm sorry for not being a better husband, for not paying attention, for not loving you more, for failing as a husband. Clara, please forgive me." At this point, I was in tears. I was sobbing like a child while Clara sat there and looked at me helplessly. After a few minutes, she got up and knelt beside me. She wiped my tears and said that she had forgiven me, and that it was fine as long as I had realized my mistake. I had realized and asked her to let me back into her life. I also told her I had given them my blessings to be together, and she was so happy. She started doing this little dance that always made me smile. I decided to move back in with her, but as a housemate until I can find a place of my own. I also found out that they, John and Clara, were planning on getting married. John and I patched things up the following week, and honestly, everything was going so well. I brought the kids back and they were so excited to see their mom. Now I know you're going to ask me what has come over me or possibly call me the biggest simp of all time, but I don't care. Seeing Clara happy made me happy, and that was all that mattered. Everything was going great at home. Clara and John would go out and I would stay home to look after the kids. John and I quickly bonded again, and I was even made his best man. I still remember feeling like a girl who had been asked to dance. He told me about it. I helped with most of the planning and made sure everything went perfectly. Clara's parents have forgiven me for what I did to their daughter, but her sister wouldn't talk to me. She thinks I've lost my mind. What does she know? Love makes you do stupid things, and honestly, I wasn't even complaining. My father was pleased with my decision and even asked me to visit him anytime wanted. The wedding was held at Hollywood and Suites Hotel at El Segundo Boulevard Gardena, and we would have a big reception at their beautiful hall. Clara and John let me handle everything, and honestly, after doing all that for them, I felt so peaceful. I found myself wondering why I didn't do this sooner. I even found out that Clara was expecting. She told me first and made me swear not to tell John. I was so happy she trusted me enough to tell me about it. One day I saw Clara looking worried and I asked her what the problem was. "It's nothing serious, just pre-wedding jitters, I guess," she told me while looking at her nails. I took her hands, gave it a soft kiss, and assured her that she had nothing to worry about. I had taken care of everything to the very last detail, and all they had to do was to be there and be happy. She smiled, gave me a long hug, and thanked me. When she was about to pull away, we both realized that our faces were so close to each other. Without warning, she kissed me and, well, I kind of kissed her back. Now, before you hate me, remember that I still loved her, and I guess those feelings never died. She didn't pull away from the kiss, and when she did, she simply smiled and said, "Thank you," to which I smiled back and left the room. I felt so happy I almost jumped up like a child. Tomorrow was the wedding, so I had to sleep early. Life is not always beautiful, but when you have something to look forward to every day, you stop seeing the thorns and only focus on the roses. I had been so focused on the thorns that I forgot how the roses smelt, but not anymore. I was going to give life another chance, but first I had to be there for two important people in my life at the moment. Finally, the wedding day had arrived and Clara looked so stunning in her wedding dress. She wore a trumpet wedding dress with a long veil and a crown on her head, while John wore a three-piece slim fit suit with Oxford shoes. They both looked like something you'd read in a storybook, and I kid you not, I teared up when they both said their vows. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, and now it was time for the reception. After everyone had eaten and enjoyed themselves, I asked John to give me some time to give them a gift, and he agreed. You know, I just love happy endings. They always made me smile, so I wanted to give them one. Now I had installed a big screen and hired a projector because I planned to play a slideshow for them. The slideshow started with a picture of Clara as a baby, and then one of John as a child. That caused the crowd to smile and go, "Oh!" Next were videos of Clara and John in cute moments, looking at each other smiling and laughing. It was indeed a beautiful moment. Then, a video started playing. It was of me smiling into the camera. I can't wait to see her face when we go there. It's going to be priceless. I know that things have been going roughly, and that work has been hectic, but I still love you, and I will always love you. I spoke into the camera before asking someone in front of me if they were ready. The next slide was a video of me in the gym with Kenzie looking around for Clara. Then it showed the gym receptionist informing us that Clara wasn't a member of the gym. Then I turned the camera to myself and spoke. Did I forget the name of the gym? I was still asking myself questions when the voice of Clara's sister was heard, telling me that she had gotten her sister on the phone, so I looked into the camera, smiled, and said, "Let's go." Now, as you can imagine, the bride looks very uncomfortable in her seat while the groom is shooting me death glares, but I just smile back and turn my head back to the video. Now we had arrived at the hotel and we saw the receptionist talking to me. Then we slowly made our way up the hotel stairs. We arrived at the door and the saxophone can be heard in the background. As I was about to knock on the door, John stood up and demanded that the slideshow be stopped, but to everyone's surprise, my father told him to keep quiet and asked me to continue. Now, when I tell you that I had the biggest smile on my face, I continued with the slideshow and showed how I discovered about Clara and John. The entire room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the newlywed and shook their heads. My fellow Redditors, I wasn't done yet. You see, I recorded our entire conversation from that day and it was shown. The next slideshow was about Clara. She was seen with an older man and they were being intimate with each other. I paused at the moment and took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? How are we enjoying the wedding so far? Good? Okay. Now, some of you may know me as the evil ex-husband who cheated on his beautiful wife, and many of you hated me without even knowing me. I was even threatened by my own father because of her. I always wondered why, but guess what? Now I know. After I said this, I played the video, and guess what? The older man in the video was my father. Yes, my biological father. I found out about them after I made peace with Clara and John. But let's go back to the wedding. The moment my father's face appeared on the screen, I think I heard someone scream, but at that moment I didn't even care to turn back. I was too invested in how good the video had come out. The next slide was a picture, or rather more pictures of Clara and my father while an audio recording was playing. It was Clara on the phone with her friend, and she was saying how she had gotten pregnant again for my dad. She further revealed that my father was the biological father of our daughter, and that she was just going to do it all over again with John and tell him that he's the father. The final clip had me in it. It was the night Clara and I kissed. Well, We may have done more than that, and every second was recorded, but before it ended, a clip of John hitting on Clara's younger sister appeared. He said that he was only getting married to her so that he could take out a life insurance on her. He further stated that after he was done with her, Clara, he would come for her, her sister. After the clip ended, a little message popped up, "Happy married life to John and Clara. I hope you find what you've been searching for in each other. Psy, I hope you like this wedding gift of mine." After the screen went black, I bid everyone farewell and left the hall. I changed my phone number, took my kids, and left. Remember I said I couldn't understand how people could sleep peacefully after causing mayhem. I still can't because I've been sleeping like a baby since that day. I still have my kids with me, and I'm currently with Kenzie, Clara's sister. We're not together. Yet who knows? Something might happen later. That's all. I hope my story was able to brighten your day.